Hey everyone, it's me, Arthur Kade. I have an absolutely awesome morning happening here because I'm sitting with the Libertarian presidential candidate. You're actually doing great in the polls. You were on Colbert last night. I'm here with two-term governor of New Mexico, former governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson. You initially started on the Republican Party. You've now moved to the Libertarian Party. You're actually polling great, as I had mentioned. In fact, I think I read somewhere against Romney and Obama, you're polling at 7% right now. And you've got some pretty cool stances. You already got my vote, I think, just off of seeing what you like with legalizing marijuana, same-sex marriage, so much cool stuff. We're going to get to all of it. For someone like me who thinks like a 6-year-old, Gary, talk to me about what is the Libertarian Party?
Well, me being in the same 6-year-old category, Libertarian Party, fiscally conservative and socially tolerant, which I think most Americans fall in that category. Let's get out of the wars in the Middle East. People are tolerant when it comes to social issues. So marriage equality, that's a huge issue. Legalize marijuana. And balance the federal budget. If we don't balance the federal budget, I don't think we're going to have a country.
As a governor in New Mexico, you were actually ranked as one of the most popular governors ever in New Mexico and the governor of the decade there. And in terms of the budget, you actually left New Mexico, with a surplus. Talk to me about some of your ideas in terms of balancing the budget.
Well, what I did as governor of New Mexico, maybe the most distinguishing thing about me as governor of New Mexico is I vetoed 750 bills, which, Arthur, may have been more vetoed bills than all the other governors in the country combined. And that was about money, and that was also about vetoing stuff that just would have made us take more time and more money to comply with rules, regulations, laws that really weren't going to make a difference in our lives at all, other than to add time and money to comply with them.
I love it. You take the complexities out of it and really the bureaucracy out of it, and that's really what your stance is. Marijuana, I think you've already got my vote off of that. Talk to me about why you're in terms of positively legalizing marijuana. What is your stance there?
Really, it's supporting it A through Z. But if you want to look at the number of arrests a year, 900,000 people a year arrested on marijuana charges. We got 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. That's the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. This is crazy. And then fundamentally, marijuana is safer than alcohol. Legalizing marijuana will lead to less substance abuse because currently individuals that are drinking all the time, they're going to find marijuana as a much safer alternative.
High five on that. I love it. Instead of calling you Gary, can I just call you Gov from now on?
Anything you'd like.
I'm going to call him Gov from now on. Also talk to me about same-sex marriage, because while you were on Colbert yesterday, you actually had a great quote, which I loved, which was, keep government out of the bedrooms. I mean, I don't want government in my bedroom anyway, but talk to me about what you mean with that.
Well, keep government out of the bedrooms. I think that it is a constitutionally guaranteed right that individuals would be allowed marriage equality. I just fundamentally believe that. And
I agree 100%, by the way.
And Arthur, I have to tell you, I'm one of these people that has grown up, and I feel embarrassed by what I'm about to tell you, but not wanting to be prejudiced against gays, I said things about gays that come later to find out, gay friends that I didn't know were gay. I think they were in the closet because of stuff that I said, that others said. You know, it was kind of the way it was growing up, and I'm embarrassed by that. But it's something that I've come to recognize, and embarrassed by it. Well, going forward, like I say, this is for same-sex couples. I don't know of any gay couples that wouldn't make great parents, for example. I couldn't
agree more.
And so I think there has been a prejudice in this country. It's completely unfounded for a lot of people. Like I say, I'm trying to put myself in that category. I didn't know any better, and I wish I would have known better.
The Libertarian Party, you had a quote in terms of people used to think of the Libertarian Party when it first started as a bunch of kooks. And now it's gained a tremendous amount of traction. In fact, in recent polls, they're now saying that 18% of Americans would be likely to vote for a third party. And the Libertarian Party is that third party that's gaining traction. And it looks like right now, and I know you probably don't want to jinx it, but it looks like you're going to be the Libertarian candidate once you hit the convention, which, by the way, is held in Vegas. I think I've got to get an invitation to that. Libertarians in Las Vegas, sold. Talk to me about that, because you're polling very strong against Obama and prospectively Romney right now.
Well, and correcting you on one thing, it's not 18% of Americans that say they would vote for a third-party candidate. It's 82% of Americans that say they would consider voting for a third party. Yeah, yeah.
Story of my life,
No. So it is significant, and when I said the Libertarian Party, if there's been a criticism of the Libertarian Party, it's that it's been kooky. Well, what's been the basis of that kookiness? Well, if you go back 40 years, it's because the Libertarian Party was the party that was saying, let's legalize marijuana. That was 40 years ago. Well, here it is. We're here. And it hasn't been legalized, but it's going to happen. And I think the first state that happens in is Colorado, but that's going to happen. So really, everything that libertarians, I think, are saying is right on. Nothing about it's kooky, but that's the opportunity that I may be given, is to be the spokesperson for the Libertarian Party.
We talked off camera, and I did mean this as an enormous compliment. You said that I don't do politicians very often, and that's true because I called them quote-unquote boring. I think you're anything but boring, and that's what I love about you. Do you find that are Americans turned off by quote-unquote how colorful you are and how the controversial is not the right word, but how some of your ideas are a little against the norm right now?
No, I don't think so. I really think, given an opportunity, that this is what, really, this is the movement in this country. The notion that, really, let's balance the federal budget. I mean, let's stop spending. Let's, in our benevolence, in our wanting to help people, for those that are in need. And there are those in need. And perhaps governments...
I'm one of those, Gary.
Well, I am too. But you can't spend more money than what you're taking in, or there's a consequence to that. And we've gotten to that point also. We're gonna suffer a monetary collapse in this country unless we fix our spending. We're only 8 years away from Greece, and a lot is being made about Greece and how, you know, they're in such a financial hole. We're only 8 years away from that, Arthur. So we've got to fix it. I mean, that's the bad news. The good news is that we can fix this. And on the other side, what is this country always been about? Hasn't it been about liberty and freedom and the personal responsibility that goes along with that? So now we're talking marriage equality, the right to be able to smoke pot, you know, the right to be able to do whatever we want to do as long as we're not adversely affecting others. And then let's get out of these wars in the Middle East. Politicians, boring politicians that beat their chests, and at a cost of American men and servicewomen losing their lives. I mean, that's beating their chests.
Devil's advocate would say that we are out of Iraq and we are slowly getting out of Afghanistan. What's your response to that?
Well, what do we have? 32,000 employees to the U.S. Embassy in Iraq. I think it's a little bit of a shell game there. We should have been out of Afghanistan 11 years ago, and let's not forget, President Obama, you know, and I hate to blame any, politics is so status quo. I hate to lay the blame on anybody, but Romney right now is talking about we're not going to get out of Afghanistan until the mission gets accomplished. What does that mean? And President Obama, when he went off here about 4 years ago and said, look, I'm going to take a really hard, it wasn't 4 years ago, it was just a couple of years ago, we're going to take a really hard look. We're going to re-examine Afghanistan. And I thought, okay, I know he talked about maybe stepping up our presence in Afghanistan, but I thought when he went off and did that, I thought, okay, we're going to get out of Afghanistan. Well, he ended up doubling down. And so we're at a higher presence than we were before he took office. So I don't have much hope for change in Afghanistan.
I actually agree with you on that point completely. I agree with you on so many points. And there's something about you that strikes me that's kind of what I call the anti-Romney. Romney's problem, major problem, is that he can't connect with the everyday person. What I love about you is you come to an interview, you're wearing sneakers, jeans, a button-up shirt, you look like the guy down the street. Meanwhile, you're running for president. What's so fascinating is you connect to people like me, to people who are everyday Americans. How do we insert you into the Romney?
Well,
like, make me president.
well, in this case, significant to becoming Libertarian nominee for president. Significant is the Libertarian nominee for president should be on the ballot in all 50 states. If the Libertarian candidate for president polls at 15%, then the Libertarian candidate for president will be on the national debate stage with Obama, and I'm believing it's going to be Romney. And Arthur, anything is possible if that happens.
Where are you in terms of that 15% right now? Because let's make the assumption, in terms of the polls, it looks like you are going to be the Libertarian candidate. Let's assume that is the case on my end. Where are you with that 15%?
Well, right now, the latest poll had it at 7. I don't know if it was so significant that I was at 7 as much as the third name was at 7, but it was my name. So how much of a stretch is it to get to 15 when it becomes recognized that there is? I think there's only going to be 3 parties on the ballot in all 50 states, Libertarian being the third party. So that's really significant. Also, I think for the most part, I am talking about the same message as Ron Paul. As much as I would like to see him successful getting the Republican nomination, I don't think that's going to happen. So what happens to all that support? What I'm laying out for you is how do you get to 15%? You get
Ron Paul behind you. And it's funny because when you actually started, we talked about this at the beginning of the interview, you started in the Republican Party in terms of running for president. And your stance with Ron Paul is very, very similar. In fact, I read that you didn't want him to run because you were hoping to galvanize his voter base behind you. Let's assume Ron Paul doesn't get the Republican nomination, which it looks like he won't. How does he galvanize his voter base behind you right now?
Well, presuming he doesn't endorse anybody, at the base of Ron Paul's support, I think, are people with brains. And so without telling them anything, where do they go to have this message continue? Well, I think there's only one alternative.
And that alternative, folks, is the Gov over here. I've got to tell you, Gary, Gov Gary, GG, I think you're freaking awesome. Like I said, watching you on Colbert, I found myself nodding continuously to so much. I'm not as rough as Steven. Steven's a little rougher than me, but I really wanted to get your points out there because I think what you stand for on so many levels is terrific. And I think, if you can get to 15%, I'd love to see you on the main stage with Mitt. If this man ever becomes president, that is the moment of my life. Obama does late night. I'm watching Leno last night. Obama's doing a video to Betty White. If you ever became president, I just got a kiss. High five on that. Gov, it has been such an honor. You're awesome.
Well, thanks, man.
Can you just say on camera I'm a better interview than Stephen Colbert?
Totally better interviewer.
Was he joking when he didn't remember you being on the show? Was that him just being facetious? Because you go, I've been on the show 3 times, and he's like, whoops. I'm curious, was that all planned or?
I don't know. Maybe they edited. Oh no, it obviously wasn't edited. It edited out. Yeah, right. It was in there. So I don't know.
Well, Stephen, I'll remember him next time I win. Anyway, you're now part of Kade Nation, which is such an honor. Kade Nation, you got to do Kade out with me. I really think you're terrific. You're awesome. It's been such an honor. So on 3, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Kade out.